So what I want to talk to you about today is the concept of variance. Now, this is a concept that's very central to the way that I look at game and the way I look at life, but it's a concept that I find is best illustrated through poker gambling statistics. And fortunately, that's an area that I've spent a lot of time in my life dealing with, so hopefully I'll be able to share this idea with you in a way that'll make it pretty understandable and also hopefully bring it home. In any case, the idea of variance is this. Basically, in life, there's randomness, and especially in gambling games, there's a ton of randomness. So for example, when I was playing poker professionally, a good win rate at the game that I was playing might look something like, I don't know, $100 an hour, plus or minus $1,200. So what that means is that in any given hour, on average, you're making $100 an hour worth of better plays than the average person, things that in the long run should earn you $100. But I wish I could speak English. The statistical variance of your results based on what cards you're going to get, how things are going to come down, how people are going to play against you in weird, unpredictable ways, is going to be roughly $1,200 an hour on average, which means that in a given hour you could maybe lose or win up to like $5,000 in like a really extreme hour one way or the other. So here you are, you could sit down at the table for an hour, play perfectly, or play as well as you're capable of, make your hour in like, or make your $100 in expected value, and then lose out like $5,000 on variance, and you would have played like to the absolute best of your ability as a winning player and lost $4,900 in an hour. Conversely, in that same hour, you could have made theoretically like $5,100 in an hour, something like that as a rough model. The point is that in the short run, over the course of an hour, or even over the course of a day or a week, you basically could lose while playing really, really well, or you could win while playing really, really badly. And this happens all the time. Like, it's very, very routine in a casino environment. You'll see some guy who isn't really that good of a player. He's just been getting really good cards, and all of a sudden he's really quickly moving up through the limits. He was playing very low limit, now he's winning, playing super high. But you look at how he's playing, and you just know, if you're a good player, if you've watched him play and you've played against him, you just know that sooner or later he's gonna lose it all back, because he's actually inherently a bad player. It's just that that variance has been in his favor for a while. Conversely, someone can be playing really well and they just have the variance against them, and they can just have a really, really brutal time. Excuse me. Can just have a really, really brutal time for just the longest time, even while playing well. And it's a bitch. It really is not fun to deal with. It really is not cool, but that's the reality of the situation, all right? There is that variance, there is that randomness. And I think that poker is a good place for learning that mentality, getting that mindset, because life is random, but poker is even more random. So it really drives it home to you. Now, how does that apply to game? Well, what that means in game is that you can go into a set and you can do everything really well and you can get a bad result. Also in game, you can go into a set and do everything, you know, just pretty haphazardly and not very well, and you just right place, right time, you're her type, whatever, and you get a good result. And so the fact of the matter is you can't attach the outcome and the result directly. You should be constantly monitoring and realizing whether you're in general doing better, whether you're in general doing worse, because obviously that's how we learn, right? And that's actually what makes poker hard to learn, and so what makes a game hard to learn, is because there is that randomness. Because if every single time you did something well, you got a positive result, and every single time you did something badly, you got a negative result, you would learn really, really quickly. There'd be the fastest learning curve, because there's perfect direct feedback. The problem with game is that because of this randomness, there is this imperfect feedback, and so it does make it hard to learn. It means that you could get better, you could get better for a week straight and be doing better game this week than you were last week, and actually get worse results. It can happen. It has happened, right? I mean, for example, like years ago, say like 5, 6, 10 years ago even, yeah, probably 10 years ago, there were times when I actually had success with girls, right? I would actually, you know, I'd go out and I would get laid. But at that point, my game was not where it is now. I mean, even my worst nights now, I'm probably still better than my nights then. But occasionally I could still get a result then, and oftentimes if I go out tonight or in where I'm at now, I don't get a result. And that's variance. And that's not a reflection on where I'm at or where my game is or any of that kind of stuff. It just is what it is. It's just something you have to deal with. That's life. You deal with that variance and you just work through it. So how do you deal with it? On a practical level, how do you deal with the variance? Well, here's what you do. Number one, you go out a lot. That's the equivalent in poker to playing lots and lots and lots of hands, because over the course of an hour, that $100 is way less than the $5,000, but over the course of 50 hours, it's equal. Over the course of 100 hours, it's double. Over the course of a year, it completely dwarfs it so that the variance doesn't matter in the long run. In the short run, it does matter. So the first way to deal with variance is get tons and tons and tons of reference experience. If you go out and talk to like 3 people, your results are going to be meaningless. You talk to 3,000 people, now your results have meaning. Okay, so that's number one. Number one cure for variance, do lots of approaches, do lots of sets. Number 2 cure for variance is mental. In poker, there's this thing called tilt. Tilt basically means that you have stopped playing your optimal game because you are now getting emotional, right? If you start, it can happen actually winning a lot or losing a lot. Typically how tilt happens is if you're losing a lot. You get to a point where, say you're sitting down at the table and you've lost like $10,000. I'd say that's a lot of money to you. Now, the fact that you've lost $10,000, you feel really bad about that. In fact, you feel pretty much as bad as you are chemically capable of feeling over losing money. So now, if you were to lose like 2,000 more, now you're losing 12,000, it hasn't actually changed how it feels for you. And so while on a logical level, $2,000 is still $2,000. It's the same as if you were losing, you know, going from 0 to 2,000. Going from 0 to 2,000 would hurt a lot. Going from 10,000 to 12,000 typically doesn't hurt as much. But winning some of it back relieves some of that bad feeling. And so what happens in tilt typically is people will start taking bigger and bigger risks in order to try and get back to even. And what they do is they end up playing suboptimally and increasing the chances, because they're playing not as well, that they'll end up losing more and more and more because it's become less emotionally relevant to them. So they're doing what will give them the good emotion rather than what will actually get them the result. What tilt basically is, it's when you're playing emotionally rather than logically and you're playing suboptimally due to it. The same thing in game. What can happen is, a lot of times if you go on a hot streak, you start to get really, really well and your emotions are actually helping you, because emotions are part of game. It's not just about the decisions you make in game, as opposed to like a poker or a finance sort of analogy. It's actually about the way you make the decisions. And so the emotions come through very strongly, and actually you can create this like virtuous cycle where you do build this massive momentum. On the flip side, if you're getting a lot of negative results, it's even easier than in like a gambling sense, then it's even easier in a game sense to start to get down on yourself, to start to think, oh my God, am I a loser? Oh my God, is this not working well? What am I doing wrong? And to start overthinking it, get in your head, getting over analytical. And that just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in the other direction. It just becomes like a downward spiral where it can get in your way. So the thing I would encourage you to do here, what they encourage you to do in poker for tilt, is get up from the table. Take a break, relax, come back to it another day, do those sorts of things. Even go home, talk about some of the hands, go over some theory, get yourself back thinking mentally and logically, as opposed to, thank you so much, as opposed to emotionally and in your head. So that's the solution. In terms of game, it's a little different, because you do want to be going out, you do want to be getting those reference experiences, and running away from it actually might hurt you more than it helps you. But what I would encourage in this case is do something to mix it up. Right? If you're getting into that downward spiral, just break it. One way or another, do something to break it. Go do something you find fun for a minute and then come back to it. Or go try, what I typically do is I'll go into a situation where I'm not gaming for results anymore, I'm gaming to have fun. I'll go game and be like, okay, now I'm just gonna try and get slapped, or now I'm gonna try some form of game that I'm terrible at and I just recognize it. Like, I'm terrible on the dance floor, I'm not a good dancer. But so maybe if I'm just getting a generally bad reaction, I say, okay, fine, if I'm gonna get a bad reaction, I may as well get a bad reaction on the dance floor where it's expected, and just have fun with it, enjoy it, and just treat it as a learning experience rather than a trying to get results experience. So just distancing yourself from the results, continuing the process, continuing to learn and get that reference, because again, the major way that you beat tilt and the major way that you have success, both in poker, both in game, both in life, is by consistently getting tons and tons of opportunities to get that reference experience, tons of opportunities to put that small little edge that you have to work for you, tons of opportunities in game to, to refine your skills, and also tons of opportunities to just put yourself in front of the right girl for you, or the girl who's gonna be like in line with your personality, is typically gonna like you. So get those reference experiences, but don't be hard on yourself. If you're having trouble, if you're not succeeding for a period, stop focusing on the success. You know, if you go through a night and you're just getting blown out by every single girl, maybe it's time to just be like, okay, look, this is just the night where I'm gonna get blown out. Deal with it. Let's just have fun with it and see how many fun ways I can get blown out. Just realize that everybody has to have that sometimes, like same as in poker. Everybody's gonna get bad cards, everybody's gonna get good cards. In game, some days you're gonna be on, some days you're gonna be off. Some days every girl you talk to is gonna be down, some days every girl's gonna be married. It just depends. It's just random variance. Deal with it. Keep it fun for yourself, continue the learning process, and recognize that game is a long-term thing. Game is not about what you do tonight, what you do tomorrow. It's about what you do in 10 years. Not about how you do with one particular girl, but of what you make of yourself. If you make the right things of yourself, you will get the right results with the girls. All right, I hope that wasn't like about clear as mud. I hope the poker analogy helped you more than it confused you. And with that said, recognize the variance in game, push through it, realize that your short-term results will not necessarily correlate to your skill, but the long-term results will. So stay with it, stick with it. The other thing to do in both cases, game and poker, get advice from somebody, right? If you're having really bad results, post on the forum, have a discussion. But in any case, do something to break it up. Do something to try something new, do something to get a new suggestion, do something to get feedback, and then get back out there. And you know what? If it goes bad again, take another break, get some more feedback, get back out there. Keep getting back on that horse, but don't be stupid. Don't just get back on and do the same exact thing that got you bucked off the previous time. All right, that's it from Washington, D.C., signing off.